A San Marcos fire that killed a San Antonio native and 4 others exposes a gap in fire safety regulations that allow older buildings to legally operate without sprinklers.
This is a tragedy. So it's really just trying to sort of make sense of it all and also see what sort of steps can be taken in the wake of it.
A brutal stabbing, shooting, murder case marks the second capital murder mistrial in Bexar County this month.
This jury that listened to Tandalyn Jackson describe the stabbing and shooting deaths of her daughter and Rodney Spring and heard her name the killer in that 911 recording couldn't reach agreement.
And will Manu Ginobili call it quits or stay with the Spurs for another season?
I thought Kawhi was going to drive Manu out of basketball. I think now that Kawhi's gone, he'll come back because he A, feels good, wants to play, and B, he don't want to go out on a bad note with all the drama and all the crap that they went through.
I'm Chance Storland with your Express Briefing for Monday, July 30th. Subscribe to this and other free content at expressnews.com/podcasts. And get each day's top news and sports headlines delivered to your inbox at expressnews.com/newsletters. More than a week after a San Marcos apartment complex fire killed 5 and injured 6 more, including 1 critically, new scrutiny is being placed on the city's fire safety regulations that allow older buildings to legally operate without sprinkler systems. Here's San Antonio Express News reporter Austin Horn.
These 2 buildings, Iconic Village and Vintage Pads, which are both owned by the same company, they were built at a time when the code was last updated in 1968, and the code then did not require sprinklers. Code has since changed to require new buildings to have sprinklers, but the old buildings, they don't have to be retrofitted. That's not a law that's required by San Marcos. So that's been something that's been contentious as we sort of get deeper into the aftermath, as people start to move beyond just the shock and towards potential next steps for ensuring that this wouldn't happen again. These apartments did have smoke detectors by and large. The reporting that we're gathering about those smoke detectors is that they have been applied and maintained somewhat inconsistently. Oftentimes, a lot of people will tell us that maintenance would come around to their apartment and they would have, say, 3 smoke detectors in their unit. And maintenance would come around, check 1, and then just leave. They wouldn't bother to check all of them. So that's a problem that's been identified. And most of these people, even the ones in the 500 building where the fire was raging the strongest, most of these people say that their smoke detectors didn't go off. It took them to hear glass breaking. It took them to smell smoke before they reacted to the fire. It wasn't a smoke alarm that tipped them off.
Hear more of my conversation with Express News reporter Austin Horn on the latest episode of the In-Depth podcast. Available for free download at expressnews.com/podcasts. A jury that listened to an eyewitness describe the stabbing and shooting deaths of 2 people in detail and heard her name the killer in a 911 recording couldn't reach agreement on whether the accused, Luis Antonio Arroyo, was guilty, forcing the judge to declare a mistrial. Thursday's ruling also means the second mistrial declared this month in Bexar County in a capital murder multiple persons case where prosecutors were seeking the death penalty. Here's San Antonio Express News courts reporter Elizabeth Zavala.
Defense attorney Joel Bettis, he pointed out first and foremost that unfortunately everyone involved was on drugs that day. You have 3 people who were smoking crack cocaine. You have 1 person who survived who admitted that they had smoked crack that day. And he was basically attempting to discredit the testimony of Tandalyn Jackson. But he also dinged the San Antonio Police Department for what he called a shabby investigation that was riddled with mistakes. And he pointed out that the lead investigator for San Antonio Police, Detective Robert Bunnell, did not secure the crime scene, that there were a lot of police police officers that were milling around the crime scene, and specifically also that there were other Tony Arroyos who were in the area who were not investigated. He also mentioned that police left a shell casing inside a pillowcase that contained the gun that they believed to have been used in the crime. He didn't stop there, though. Joel Perez pointed out testimony from one of two men who testified that he saw Arroyo before and after the incident. And each time he saw him, he said he was walking calmly. In the end, this jury that listened to Tandalyn Jackson describe the stabbing and shooting deaths of her daughter and Rodney Spring in detail and heard her name, Tony, as the killer in that 911 recording, couldn't reach agreement on whether Luis Antonio Arroyo was guilty. And that forced the judge to declare a mistrial Thursday.
Hear more discussion of the case on today's episode of The Docket. Available for free download in Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and wherever you listen to podcasts. And while the fate of one of the NBA's best players who used to be a Spur has already been decided, fan favorite Manu Ginobili still has yet to publicly announce his decision on whether he'll remain a Spur. Here's San Antonio Express News Spurs beat reporter Jabari Young and WOAI's Don Harris discussing that topic on today's episode of the Spurs Insider.
Manu Ginobili coming to a decision soon.
He's coming back.
You think so?
Yeah. Well, I think the reason he's quiet is he's got a contract. There's no reason to make an announcement.
No, there's not. But I mean, I think people will rather listen. We're like a couple of days away from August. Like somebody, he needs to make a decision. Matter of fact, he made a decision way earlier than this last year.
He's coming back. Last year he wasn't under contract. He was a free agent. They offered him a contract.
Yeah, but you know he wasn't going anywhere.
Right. I expected him to come back last year. It was 2 years ago where I thought it was in danger with the whole Philadelphia thing. But he's got a contract, so why does he need to say anything? He's always said, I'm going to go away for 2 months, and then late July, whenever, mid or late July, I'm going to look in the mirror and I'm going to say, do I feel like a basketball player? And if I feel like a basketball player, I'm going to come back. 2 years ago, he was beat up. He was out of shape. He was injured, and he came back because the money was good because Philly offered him 33 for 2 and the Spurs had to match and give him 14 a year. And he got that money, and now he's playing for 2.5. But last year he played for 2.5 because he felt great. This year, he's even better shape. He's leaner than I've ever seen him. He played better this year than he has in the last 2 or 3 years. He was contributing. There's no reason to stop based on health. I think when he looks in the mirror, he's going to say, I still feel like a basketball player.
Yeah.
So that's why I think he's coming back.
Hear more of Young and Harris discussing Manu Ginobili, Kawhi Leonard, and DeMar DeRozan at expressnews.com/podcasts. And that's your daily San Antonio Express News briefing for Monday, July 30th. Subscribe to this and other free content at expressnews.com/podcasts. I'm Chance Dorland.